Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, Tunde. Good morning, Leila. Let's start with these day newspapers. The lead story. Of course, Ruben. The lead story. Service chiefs on the spot as Senators' House call for their resignation. Senate urges Buhari to declare national security emergency. Summons IG. Now, if we look at the Daily Trust, the front page, reps ask service chiefs to go. We did not appoint ourselves. Some PDP, APC senators agree with lower chamber. Now, if you see, these are the service chiefs. Front page of the Daily Trust. The longest serving chiefs, the longest serving service chiefs in Nigeria. And of course, General Abayomi Gabriel Olonishakin, Chief of Defense Staff, he was commissioned as Second Lieutenant in 1981, member of the 25th Regular Course of the Nigerian Defense Academy. Of course, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, Vice Admiral Ibok Ete Ekwe Ibas, and Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar. The security of the nation is what is being discussed. Just changing the service chief, would that solve the problem? Because if there are persons under this service chief who can take over from them and do better, why are they not bringing those ideas forward?
I don't tend to agree with arguments like, will this solve the problem? Let's do it first. That's the similar argument to what people said against Amotekun. Is that going to solve it? Well, let's try it. Because like you said, they are the longest serving service chiefs, so let's try something else.
Well, I mean, the consensus out there, if we may call it a consensus among Nigerians, is that under the watch of these service chiefs, not much has been achieved. These are the same service chiefs who've been talking about changing security architecture. I think one of them, in fact, popularized that phrase. And Nigerians say, well, we just hear architecture. We can't see what has been built in terms of achievement. And they've recommended again and again to President Muhammadu Buhari to try new hands who can deliver. But as has also been pointed out, it's not just about personnel. There are other issues under this so-called architecture that will still need to be addressed. You know, are the troops well motivated enough? Are they properly equipped? Do we have even the political will to address many of the challenges, particularly with regard to not just insurgency, but also farmers, herders clash, and also, you know, internal security in every part of the country. So these are some of the issues, you know, that will need to be addressed. But Nigerians think, well, as some kind of demonstration of, you know, commitment, of determination, at least change the team. You know, let's have new people. And of course, they hold those positions at the pleasure of the president. And that's why some of them have said, look, we didn't appoint ourselves. I'm sure if the president chooses to retire them or chooses to relieve them of their duties, you know, they will be very glad to him because they've really, in the eyes of Nigerians, overstayed their welcome.
But the president, who is the commander-in-chief, seemed to have confidence in them. Recall that he was asked this question about his service chiefs when these days /Arise interviewed him.
Well, thank God for the separation of
powers.
Well, that was
a long time ago. He could change his mind.
Exactly.
And Nigerians are saying, well, if that was his position 4 or 5 months ago, maybe now he should reconsider that position.
Check out the votes of no confidence that he got. I'm sure his position must have switched just a bit, if anything.
The president may be seeing things we don't see because he mentioned you have to appoint people you trust and you have confidence in. That much he said in that interview.
Nigerians are saying the emphasis should be on performance and results.
True.
It is true the president has a helicopter view, you know, because he's privy to information that is not in the public domain. But in terms of delivery, Nigerians say a lot more needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on. Well, the Following the discussion at the National Assembly yesterday, at the Daily Independent newspaper, of course, the lead story, PDP, APC senators clash over call for Buhari to resign. But what I want to take from this newspaper is reps to amend constitution to accommodate Amotekun others, demand resignation of service chiefs. We have formed our own security outfit, Southeast Governors. So, perhaps responding to the needs of the time.
Yeah, the major debate in the National Assembly was about state police.
Yes.
You know, and as we pointed out earlier, there were people opposing, there were people supporting. Most of the people supporting, incidentally, are from the southern part of Nigeria. Most of the people who opposed were from the Middle Belt and the North. I don't know whether that indicates anything, but the truth of the matter is that everybody expressed concern about security and the need to find a solution to it. But I think Amotekun, Operation Amotekun, is an indication that, you know, whether we like it or not, whether the Constitution is eventually amended or not to introduce state police, regions and states will have to, you know, adopt creative measures to check the menace of banditry and kidnapping and crime, you know, in their various jurisdictions, especially as the federal government seems not to be delivering, you know, in the people's consideration, as it were.
Well, if we go to the Nation newspaper, the lead story, Presidency attacks Senator for asking Buhari to quit. Insecurity, Senators rest push for service chief sack. Now the quote there, let the government resign because they can no longer do anything. That's Senator Iyinaya Abaribe. While the Presidency, yes, in a statement or a series of tweets by Garba Shehu, Senator Abaribe should be in jail, having failed to produce Nnamdi Kanu.
So off script.
Well, Ruben, in your days as presidential spokesman, you managed to escape having that tag of attack dog.
No, that was not my job. I was running the media and communications arm of the presidency.
Well,
I was not recruited as an attack dog.
Well,
you know, we later got somebody to do that job.
Also, indeed, you have attack dog. Well, and the president said, with all due respect, you should be called an attack lion. I haven't done that job over time. But Garba Shew's response, Presidency attacks. That's what I'm using. Getting to the attack dog tag, because that's the headline there. Presidency attacks Senator for asking Buhari to quit. Now, the response of Garba Shehu, to me, is unbecoming of a presidential spokesman. I thought you should just face the issues at hand. Tell Nigerians what the government is doing or about to do to debunk that call for the president to resign than going down that route of saying, oh, you should be in prison and all that. I don't see how that answers the question raised on the floor of the National Assembly.
Well, I even said Senator Iyinaya Abaribe, you know, is covered by privilege, parliamentary privilege. And this was in the course of a debate, and he was expressing the opinion of the PDP caucus in the Senate. So to call him an armchair critic and say he should be in jail, you know, and that was a stray comment, I think that was a bit too hard-hitting. Even the attack lion himself, you know, when he was on duty, you know, wouldn't probably go this far to ask that someone should be in jail, you know.
Okay, let's move on to other stories. Well, the Guardian newspaper, uproar in Senate over call for Buhari to quit. The same story. Then beneath the photograph, government warns against traveling to China as coronavirus spreads. And apart from those being advised not to go to China, no matter what you have to do there right now, of course, with the end of the Chinese New Year, a number of Chinese residents in Nigeria will be returning to their duty post or business post, as the case may be. So I hope we are prepared for them, because like it's been done elsewhere, those coming from China, you need to quarantine, especially those who are coming from that city.
Yeah, and we have to take a cue from what has happened. In the case of Ivory Coast, there has been a reported case. A Nigerian and an Ivorian who is a student in China returned and showed symptoms. I think there's also been a reported case in Ethiopia. In the Hubei province alone, there are over 7,000, students from Africa in various schools there. And in the whole of China, given the relationship between China and Africa in the last decade, you have more students studying in China than you have students, African students in either the US or the UK, which means that Africa, will be affected. And of course, Nigeria has a special relationship also with China, as you know. There are many Nigerian students in China who are on scholarship. There are Nigerians who, go to China to go and bring, all kinds of goods and services. And, even here, we have China City, right? Isn't that what it's called?
Chinatown.
Chinatown. We have Chinatown here and there. So, but it's a good thing that government is saying, look, we will address this problem. And there's been a lot in terms of information and sensitization. We just need to do a lot more. And we hope that the assurances government has given, assurances that Nigerians can rely on.
Absolutely. A spread to 19 countries is serious. It really is.
Yes, it's spreading all around the world.
The thing is so scary that I've stayed away from Chinese restaurants for this period.
But now you're scaring me because I had Chinese for dinner, so now I'm looking back and I'm like, doctor.
You'll be very
honestly, I need to stick to sushi.
You'll be very courageous to approach a Chinese restaurant these days. Well, we'll continue. If we look at the Daily Sun, beside the masthead.
Efeni, before you go away from this, some people have expressed concern that what is the Nigerian government doing to evacuate Nigerian nationals who are either in China or in Wuhan or in Hubei province? Because some countries are evacuating their nationals and protecting them.
Yeah,
they're not doing anything.
Honestly, I thought there was
we have not heard any effort in that direction.
Yes, because if there was an effort, we would have heard it.
Yes, I think perhaps there should be. We are making a call.
We've got to go on break now.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Still with us is Emmanuel Efeni, who has been reviewing top stories from around the world in today's newspapers.
Yes, Ruben, we're still in front page of Daily Trust. The lead story is still on this coronavirus. Don't go to China, federal government tells Nigerians. Shorts Abuja supermarket selling illegally imported seafoods from China. In fact, that was another scary one. That is very scary. Supermarket, because most of the food items were packaged without label, no source of origin. The origin of those products not marked, of course, they had to close that supermarket, and the handlers there were also, called to come and answer some questions. Unfortunately, they couldn't answer. They were saying they don't speak English, they only speak Chinese. So they will get interpreters to help get some information from them. But we were just talking about Nigerians who are living in China and even that region. Other countries are making efforts to bring back their nationals. What is Nigeria doing? But it's not just bringing them back, because if you bring people back, you will have to
screen them,
quarantine them for 2 weeks, because it takes about 2 weeks for the symptoms of this coronavirus to manifest.
Well, like Tunde
in
said,
most
maybe
people,
never.
but
most people.
There's this case, this really scary individual who has infected her whole family. They have symptoms, she has none till now.
Sure that's not demonic?
I think she must be, right? Because nobody, it's really scary. So that means there are no real hard and fast rules.
Yeah.
There are these exceptions. It's very scary.
That's what makes it even scarier. Because apparently, if you have a strong immune system, then you may actually not show any symptoms. So,
a quick comment on that supermarket. I hope that's not a case of panic response on the part of the authorities. I just hope that they acted on information. And the indication is that some of those products that you have in that supermarket. I think it's called Panda Supermarket.
Yes.
We're told that they are expired, items. I said, I hope this is not a panic response, and that supermarket has not been targeted just because it is run by the Chinese. What we would like to see is, greater action, commitment, performance on the part of the Consumer Protection Council. We have a Consumer Protection Council in Nigeria. Checking, auditing supermarkets, whether they are owned by the Chinese or by Nigerians or anybody whatsoever, should be a regular thing. Yeah. But here we don't have standards. There used to be this talk about British standard. What is the Nigerian standard? I know we have a standard organization of Nigeria. How much are we getting from that organization? And how much effectiveness are we seeing on the part of the Consumer Protection Council? That's one. Two, the point about Nigerians in China, I think is a very important point, because we have seen other countries showing interest in the welfare of their people who are there. Even countries like Taiwan, like South Korea, they've had to evacuate some of their people and quarantine them. Do we have quarantine facilities at our major ports? And what is the status of those quarantine facilities? These are questions that government will need to address. And then third, on a lighter note or on a positive note, there have been reports also that some kind of cure has been found for the virus, but it is still being tested and it's not yet available in commercial quantities because it's not been registered. But it's been tested on animals and it worked. It's been tested also in humans, and we were told that there's positive result. So hopefully, the Chinese authorities will move fast with that, and this cure that has been found will help to address what looks like an emerging global pandemic.
Can I actually add to that? Because Financial Times reported China built a hospital in 2 days. Yeah. In 2 days to cater to the number of people that they needed to for coronavirus. And I think that's another important point as well. The fact that you were able to build a hospital for 1,000 people in the space of 2 days, and the country that China was 20 years ago that people used to laugh at, look now.
No, they did it. It's not the first time. They're building a facility so quickly. Yeah. They did it in 2003 when they had the severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, as it was called. And this time around, the facilities in the Hubei province have been overstretched. Yeah. I mean, about 30 million people already quarantined, so they needed a facility, and they built it. And it's important that the Director General of the World Health Organization, when he visited and met with President Xi Jinping on January 28th, indeed commended China for the manner in which it has, tried to manage this crisis.
A lot since the SARS crisis.
Yeah, so there are lessons that we can learn from how China has so far managed this public health crisis.
That is why the WHO has been unwilling to declare a global health emergency on it, because the Chinese authorities are on top of the situation.
But it must be said, the Chinese people were told to self-quarantine, and they did. Now, other countries, other nationals are not that obedient.
If you tell Nigerians to self-quarantine, they won't listen.
We're not that obedient, yes. So we have to also give them their credit, the Chinese people.
If it's as dangerous, if we see something dangerous like that, we'll obey. Nigerians love life.
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. Some people will feel they've prayed, they're covered in the blood of Jesus, and off they
go.
The churches will be the ones to benefit from the crisis.
I'm telling you.
You say, I'm covered by the blood of Jesus.
Okay, just, I think lastly...
I'm surprised. That coming from you, Miss Victoria.
Yes. Well, we have to really be practical. Yes. The good book says, do not put the Lord your God to the test. You cannot say, because I'm a Christian, I'm immune.
Exactly.
Let's not be silly.
Like that parable about the hurricane and the helicopter comes and people say, no, God is going to save me. God is coming for me. Meanwhile, the helicopter is God sending your help. So there you go.
Yes. Okay, now the Nigerian Tribune. The lead story, still the House of Rep wants service chiefs removed. But the story beside the photograph, defecting Imo lawmakers have lost their seats, PDP. I think that's another constitutional issue, because this is overnight, they all defected.
Quite the most shameful fashion.
Well, there's nothing shameful when it
There
comes.
is everything shameful.
When it comes to Nigerian politicians, just leave shame out of the matter.
Oh my God.
But you see what the law says is that for you to defect successfully, there must be crisis in your party at the national level in such a manner that you are left with no option. And there are precedents in this regard. So it's not enough for the PDP to say they've lost their seats. It's a matter that will be determined by the court of law. So they have to take consequential action to say those seats must be declared vacant. But we know, of course, that as you have pointed out, Nigerian politicians, they will crisscross because it's not about ideology. It's not about believing in anything. The matter that is now before the Supreme Court, the review of that judgment, if Emeka Ihedioha ends up getting his seat back, you can be sure these same politicians they will move back.
They will shamelessly go back. So just leave.
And they will justify it. They will justify it. Right?
It's such a shame.
If we just move to the foreign newspapers outside the shores of Nigeria, the Guardian newspaper of UK evacuated Britons face 2 weeks in quarantine. Yes, hundreds of Britons who have been evacuated from the China, the Chinese city at the center of this virus, Wuhan. They'll be quarantined for 2 weeks for obvious reasons, because it takes 2 weeks for the symptoms to manifest. Although, like you pointed out, it has also been discovered that in some persons it doesn't manifest, yet such persons can infect others. So it's a very, but at least there should be.
Will you, as has been done in I saw a schedule of aircraft that will be coming from China to Nigeria, say in the next 1 week or so. Quite a long list.
Yes.
Will you be suggesting to the Nigerian authorities to quarantine any passenger or on any plane, whose point of origin is China, anywhere in China?
Well,
at least for 2 weeks, so that we can be sure.
Do you have the
It's
facilities?
worth it because we don't have. Do we have the facilities to cater if we have a coronavirus outbreak in the country?
Well, I think what we'll do at the port is to check for the symptoms. But this 2 weeks period of gestation, as it were, I think the health authorities should also be looking at it, because if it takes 2 weeks to manifest, then we can't just screen you at the airport to say, okay, you are
fine. Yeah, that would be the incubation period.
Yeah.
So we just need to work ahead of time and take a cue from what others are doing around the world, so that we are not caught napping. Just use some temperature reader at the airport and say,
in China,
go.
the way the thing has managed to spread.
Yes.
If you were to have that kind of crisis in Nigeria, in a country of 200 million people.
Well, let's just move on. The Daily Independent newspaper. Yes, the same story is the lead story there. But above the photograph, Brussels bids adieu to the United Kingdom. Yesterday, the EU finally endorsed the Brexit deal, and you can see the very emotional European parliamentarians waving the flag of UK is actually over EU.
Tomorrow is D-Day.
Yes.
Tomorrow is Brexit.
So Brexit is done, finally. Get Brexit done.
We got there in the end.
Tomorrow is B-Day.
Yes.
It's Brexit Day.
Yes.
Yes. If we have some time, we'll just look at the Wall Street Journal. Senate trials offer hints on witnesses. Both sides are pressing the impeachment case. Of course, the Democrats want witnesses called, new documents accepted or considered. But Mick McConnell is saying
majority leader,
trying to rally around the
Republicans
to ensure that they shoot that down.
They need 4 Republicans.
Yes.
Do they have them? I know they have Mitt Romney for sure. Who will vote for Mitt?
About three of them are okay. Mitt Romney, sure. 2 others on the line. Can they get the 4th one?
They need 1 more.
They may get there.
Anyway, Efeni, Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Efeni. See you
tomorrow.